Good afternoon, guys. My name is Andrew Thompson and I'm Head of Real Estate for Altamimi & Company. I'm joined today by Andrew Love. He is Head of Capital Markets and Commercial Agency at the real estate consultancy Knight Frank. And today we're going to be talking about the UAE real estate market, the regional real estate market, and trends that we see both from a legal perspective and from an industry perspective as well. So welcome, Andrew.
Thank you.
So just as a starter, can you tell us the state of play of the real estate market in the UAE right now?
Imagine like you, very busy.
Yeah.
Market is exceptionally strong. So taking it back a little bit, my role is predominantly commercial orientated, although I do residential transactions, but more at an institutional level. So I cover a team who are handling warehouses, retail, offices, data centres. And then on the capital market side, which most of my work is, personally anyway, is all income generating assets. So hotels, malls, residential towers, and office blocks. And predominantly all of those sectors, like the residential sort of end user market, has been exceptionally strong over the last 24 months. A lot of it being driven by sentiment, a lot of new investment into the region. Investment that we've never seen before, so a lot of Asian money now looking at the market. Co-working space has also been a popular theme. On the logistics side, the warehousing market performing exceptionally well as well, driven by e-commerce, oil and gas, 3PL, and even manufacturing has returned. So on the whole, the team handling in all these sectors have been very busy.
And do you think it's sustainable?
Yes. 6 months ago, you always have that nervousness, and we were discussing internally, when is this sort of, again, when is this going to calm down? But I think what we've probably seen is population growth is probably driving that. We haven't seen the statistics come out yet, but I would probably think there's somewhere between 500,000 to 1 million people who have moved to Dubai in the last 24 months. We're seeing now a lot of Europeans move here and Asian, and I think that's really what's driving it. I'm sure there was a bit of speculation at first, but now we're seeing a lot of end user demand, and you'll know from your own business, take Knight Frank, our headcount has gone from 60 to 150. So, and we're seeing that trend across businesses, and when that happens, certainly in the commercial segment, naturally the residential people, they're moving here, they need residential apartments, villas, but on the commercial segment, when companies grow, they need more offices, and then end user consumption, right? They shop online, and, that byproduct is more warehousing space. So I think it's going to continue. Whether you'll start seeing, the prices stabilize a little bit, I'm sure that will happen at some point with interest rates rising.
Have you seen a lot of European or American money landing at the same time? So there was the Apollo deal last year with Aldar, for example, which we were involved with, which is it's $2 billion. It's not an insignificant amount. But have you seen anything similar to that in that area?
Honestly, no, not yet. Not American. European, yes, but and the same with the Asian money. I think we're seeing the inquiries, and we're getting the calls, and we're having the conversation. The deployment, not yet.
Yeah.
And I think there's a few reasons probably for that. I think Dubai, or certainly the UAE, and even the wider GCC, but I would say more so Dubai and Abu Dhabi, are very different places from what they were even 2015. I was about to say 2008, but even a few years ago, they're very different. The laws have evolved. The quality of the buildings is improving. The marketing of both Emirates around the world, very well received. I think everyone knows post-COVID, both Abu Dhabi and Dubai, have come off. It's now sort of a global city, and it's not. I don't want to say the Wild West, but it's not what it used to be. And I think that's where both Emirates have very much benefited from. The reason then, why have we not seen sort of bigger institutions sort of invest yet? I think from a commercial perspective, what perhaps, and maybe this we can discuss later on, probably what the market's still missing is sort of larger institutional grade assets that you would see in London or New York or Hong Kong or Sydney. They do exist, but a lot of that is retained either by, semi-state-owned entities such as Aldar or EMAR or Nikhil, or DIFC, where we're sitting today. And for really to attract, these sort of institutions, you need to have several $100 million deals available in any given year. And we don't see that, we don't have that volume yet.
Again, one of the questions I've got as well, sitting in the DIFC as we are, is office space. And is office an attractive sector? Because again, I was back home in Scotland, where we're both from, last week, and I go around large sort of office parks and they're empty. Here, that really doesn't feel like it's the same case.
I mean, it's funny, right? What was it, 2.5, 3 years ago, we were all saying the office is dead, right? No one will return to work. Working from home is the new norm. I mean, it couldn't be more opposite now. There is, I think, out of all the asset classes, and I mean, and this includes residential, offices is probably the most undersupplied. And our house, or at least my certainly personal view and a semi-Knight Frank house view is that there is a supply crisis looming on the horizon. And we give you one example is, less than half a kilometre away from here is Brookfield, ICD Brookfield Place. And, that is over 1 million square foot of office space that is at, 99% occupancy within 2 years, right? So, and that is a trend that we've seen across the whole city, not just the DIFC, downtown, internet city, media city, where our offices are. All the single grade A office buildings, single ownership grade A office buildings are 95% occupied.
Which is completely against the global trend.
Which is against the global trend. And it goes, well, why is it against the global trend? And if you look at sort of the ecosystem of the Dubai real estate market, it is very sort of heavily residential development orientated. You don't have, as I said, the commercial market historically, it is slightly changing. It's still very much sort of semi-government development led. So these large, organisations like EMAR, Nikhil, Aldar, we've been relying on them building these commercial office towers, and they haven't been developing these assets since sort of pre-pandemic. So, what we're seeing now is a situation where we have this sort of lack of supply in the market. We haven't had these sort of big entities building office blocks. And the commercial private sector, there's only, say, a handful of developers who, are active in it, and they can't keep up with.
Are they actually acting on that? Because from our perspective, we've done a huge number of residential developments this year. We've got developer clients coming in almost daily, doing a new villa, towers, normally towers, both here and in Abu Dhabi. And Abu Dhabi's quite interesting. We'll come back to that because Abu Dhabi's really taken off. But I've not had one person come to me and ask to work on a single-use office building.
Yeah.
And when I speak to investors, particularly again, we've had a few inquiries from Europe. The reality is they want single-use office buildings. They don't want mixed use. And the Middle East obsessed by mixed use. But they actually just want a Brookfield. They want something that has grade A tenants. And that doesn't seem to be coming on the market.
It's a funny one. So, any development cycle, there's always a lag. So I think people are finding sort of catching on. Wow, there's a lack of, there's an undersupply here. Let's act on it. So it is happening. There is, some of these entities we've mentioned and the sort of big semi-state are now looking at it and saying, well, look, we're going to have to address this. So they are identified land parcels. There is people in active discussions with us for land sites to build offices. But, it's not like a warehouse, which we can knock up in 12 to 14 months. It's going to, talking 2 to 3 years to build an office building. So this is where this sort of, I think over the next, 2 to 3 years, we're actually going to see a bit of an issue in terms of supply. Rents are undoubtedly going to rise. I think, we've both just mentioned here, both of our firms are expanding. When you now come to have discussions with landlords, what conversations that you were having on rental 12 months ago you're looking at 30-40% potential increases in the next 2 to 3 years. What will eventually happen, supply and demand will balance out. You will see in the next 2 to 3 years, hopefully, a few million square foot added, but in that short term, 24 months, it's not going to happen. But, to answer your question, yeah, we're now having that discussion. Okay. Not with as many private developers as we want. There is some of the bigger sort of private developers, your likes of DeMac, MAG, Select Group. No, they're not actively looking at building commercial office towers.
I guess it's not really their business model. Their business model is off plan, and when you look back at 2008, before that, people selling individual floors in office buildings, total disaster.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to come on to was, and I've been quite struck, Abu Dhabi is busy in a way that's never been before. Certainly from our experience, we are receiving easily twice as many instructions in Abu Dhabi as we would have done 18 months ago. Yeah. And I'm just like, is that something?
Same, right? We have a commercial brokerage team there, actually one of the largest in Abu Dhabi. And I laugh because I look at the volume of inquiries they receive. It's actually more than Dubai. Yeah. Now, the conversion of those inquiries, that's a different thing, but they're exceptionally busy, again, across all asset classes. Probably offices, again, is where they're busiest, and a bit of retail. Similar story there, undersupply of office buildings. I know Aldar have acted on that, and they are looking to sort of expand ADGM and build more office blocks, but again, it's 2-3 years away. I think Abu Dhabi, as a city, I'm very bullish on it as well. You can see what they've done with Yas Island, with the likes of Miral building Yas South around the Etihad Arena, the addition of more restaurants, bars. I think I think if we look at a 5-year, 10-year plan, I think Abu Dhabi is going to look very good. Yeah,
it's got a really strong cultural offering with all the museums and whatever. And certainly when we are looking at the hospitality sector now, we're seeing more inquiries, and still not the same volume, even though I go all to Abu Dhabi all the time. But it is just expanding as a market. And you just see the number of residential developments as well. The Eagle Hills development, for example, these are large and very different from what you saw before.
Yeah, I think even just the nature of the landscape, the beaches. Yeah. I think the government are sort of taking a more proactive approach. I have a friend who heads up a financial services company in where I'm from, in Scotland, Edinburgh, and they've asked them to relocate the business into ADGM, and they've agreed. So I think there's a sort of reshift in what's going on with Europe, the UK, and I think more firms are looking to relocate here. And it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next 5 years. Both ADGM and the DIFC have been very proactive in trying to attract hedge funds to relocate their business here.
I was going to say that comes on a point I would want to speak to you about. Hedge funds coming in, financial services coming in. Are you seeing it mainly coming from Asia, or is it European led? Or we've placed a number of financial institutions, mainly in the IFC and one in ADGM, from Singapore, Hong Kong, because of all the things that are going on over there. But is it similar to what you're saying?
Well, it was exactly what you just said. I think the quite strict lockdowns that were taking place in Hong Kong. We initially saw a lot of firms move from Hong Kong, but now it's more global, right? It's now UK. I just gave you an example there from Edinburgh, but there's also firms from London, and now we've got firms from the States, New York. So it's now a sort of global picture, and then it's not just hedge funds, right? We just relocated Pernod Ricard, which is one of the largest alcohol beverages company in the world. They've just relocated to DIFC. So it's all industries, all types of business. We've never seen that
10 years ago. Yeah, nah. It is an exciting time to be. Yeah, like and it feels different to the way it did before. And on changes, got to come on to Saudi. What's your position on Saudi? What's Knight Frank's position on Saudi?
Look, we've invested heavily into Saudi. It's one of our sort of fastest growing businesses for Knight Frank globally. We've got approaching 100 staff there. I would say we'll be 100 staff within the next 2 years there. We have offices principally in Jeddah, but headquartered is in Riyadh. We've just signed a new office there ourselves. What are we seeing? I mean, it's similar to Dubai, huge growth, largely driven by the public sector. But if we take commercial brokerage, we've just signed 2 10,000 square metre office deals for banks. Financial services being driven, retail again. We've got a lot of, gymnasiums, for example, companies who are based here now looking to expand in Riyadh, F&B, coffee shops, across a whole spectrum.
And what are the challenges for going into Saudi?
I mean, I think, like what Dubai was 5-10 years ago is the evolution of the real estate laws. I think foreign ownership, they're trying to address it now. I think there was an announcement recently that there will be a foreign ownership allowed soon, but it's still not there. So I think when you have businesses who, want that 100% foreign ownership, there's still nervousness around that level.
Again, from the legal side as well, they're making such huge strides, but when we speak to investors, they're still not sure exactly where they stand because the law's changing so quickly, and it is a challenge. Certainly, when we are looking at the market, it is very governmental. We don't even see a huge amount of private money floating around simply because the government sector has taken up so much of the land bank. I was speaking to a fund in Riyadh recently, and they were really struggling to find plots to develop because economically, because simply the government entities had bought up all the good land, which is a difficult thing. It's possibly something they need to address to really create a vibrant private sector.
I think there's a general trend sometimes across the whole GCC, not just Saudi, about sort of private-public competition, and it will eventually work out. I think there's huge opportunities for developers in Saudi. I mean, probably that's the most striking thing that I notice when I'm there is the lack of quality commercial and residential assets, and that includes hotels, office blocks. So there's huge potential there, but I think, like you said, until those sort of laws, ranging from ownership of land through to foreign ownership of businesses, that is probably what's holding back private sector developers entering that market. The likes of Brookfield, perhaps, maybe going and building an ICD Brookfield place there.
I've got 2 final points. One is, you and I have worked on a lot of logistics deals over the years. What's happening in logistics right now?
I mean, we're exceptionally bullish on it. We have been for several years.
Is stock not a problem?
Stock is, as the theme of today is the undersupply of the market. Stock is certainly a problem. There was a 2-tier sort of market happening where the older stuff was just deteriorating really quickly, and the premium stuff was just attracting rents that we'd never seen. Now we're at a stage where we just we just need stock. But like I mentioned, unlike offices, land is relatively easy to get, and you can develop a warehouse pretty quick. So out of all asset classes, it perhaps has the ability to go from undersupplied to oversupplied the quickest. And there is a lot of big developers looking at that, and not just public sector, actually more private sector. But the demand is there. We are at a situation where we've got, volumes of inquiries that far exceed the supply. And I think that's our challenge for the agents working in the team. Every day I hear them saying, we need more supply.
My final point, and something I'm personally quite interested in a geeky way, data centres. How are you seeing their development here in the Gulf?
Look, sometimes, people, in the simplest thing, and maybe explain, people say, well, what do you mean by data centres? And we talk about the cloud, right? It is that. It's not the thing in the sky. It is a thing in the sky, but it's not when it comes to real estate. The cloud is your data center, essentially a big box, usually in either a city location, which may be a smaller infill sort of data center, or it might be a larger, so what we call hyperscale on the outskirts of the city. That essentially is your data when you're accessing your phone, or a Bloomberg article, or your online banking, or your Amazon data, or your servers for your offices. So naturally, as a population grows like Dubai, we consume more data, so we need more data centers. So for us, it's a massive growing sector for us, not just locally but globally too. We have a global data center team headed by Stephen Beard and Ben Skirt. It's again one of our fastest growing sectors. We're actually now setting up a dedicated data center team here locally. We've done 2 transactions in the last 12 months, and we have about 8 or 9 transactions on the go in the active pipeline just now. So, merging that in with logistics, it's a sector we're extremely bullish on.
Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Andrew.
So, hope you've enjoyed that, everybody. We've certainly enjoyed speaking to you today. If you get any questions on any of the issues raised here, please feel free to contact myself or Andrew. And we'd be very happy to help and assist. So
yeah, likewise, if you any industrial, any office inquiries, please get in touch. And Andrew, I'm sure, and his team will be delighted to help you with the lease negotiations and sale and purchase agreements that we commonly work with together.
All the best, guys. Thanks.